If you think Ferrari collectors are just about red paint and horsepower stats, you haven't seen Greg Whitten's garage. This isn't a lineup, it's a time machine packed with ultra rare models, race-bred legends, and custom builds. Stick around because one of these cars sold for over $48 million, and that's not even the craziest part. Alright, let's talk about Greg Whitten's 1962 Ferrari 250 GTO, and yeah, this one's on a whole different level. We're talking about chassis number 3413, the third GTO Ferrari ever built, and only one of 4 that got the upgraded Series 2 body from Scaglietti. That alone makes it insanely rare, but it also dominated on the track, over 15 major wins, including the 1962 Italian GT Championship. Now here's what makes it special in Whitten's hands. The car is still rocking its original V12 engine, 5-speed manual gearbox, rear axle, the works. No modern upgrades, no flashy mods, just pure race-bred Ferrari history. Whitten picked it up for about $7 million back in 2000. Not just to stash in a garage, but because he loves driving cars with soul. He's big on originality, and it shows. This thing is exactly how it was when it raced back in the day. Fast forward to 2018, it sold at auction for $48.4 million, making it the most expensive Ferrari ever sold publicly. Did you know, this GTO is still running the same mechanical setup it used during its 1960s racing career. Basically unheard of for a car that's been through that much track time. This Ferrari isn't just some pretty face from the 60s, it's the 275 GTB4, and if you know your vintage Ferraris, you'll know this one's a major grail car. Only about 330 of these 4-cam beauties were ever built between 1966 and 68, making it one of the rarest road-going Ferraris of its era. It was the final and most evolved version of the 275 series, and Ferrari packed it with everything they had learned up to that point. You get that sleek long-nosed Scaglietti designed body, paired with a quad-cam Colombo V12 that made around 300 horsepower, seriously strong numbers back then, and it's not just fast in a straight line. This thing is smooth, balanced, and surprisingly usable for a classic this old. Whitten picked this one because he's all about cars that feel alive, not locked behind glass. He wanted something that looks like an automotive sculpture but also performs when you get behind the wheel. His GTB4 isn't a show queen, it's a driver. That's exactly why he tracked one down with full factory originality, matching numbers, the correct 6 Weber carburetors, and that unmistakable torque tube driveline that makes it feel way more planted than most 60s GTs. Ferrari also fitted it with a rear transaxle and independent rear suspension, which completely changed the way it handled, far ahead of its time. Some versions even come with lightweight alloy bodies, making them even more desirable to collectors. But for Whitten, it wasn't just about chasing a rare VIN, it was about having something he could actually use. He's taken his GTB4 on vintage rallies, open road drives, and probably to grab a coffee or two. It's a classic Ferrari you don't just admire, you experience it, every time you turn that key. Fun fact, this was the first road-going Ferrari to use both a transaxle and independent rear suspension. Cutting edge tech back then, kind of like what carbon monocoques and hybrid drivetrains are to today's hypercars. Now let's talk about a Ferrari that doesn't just sit in history, it defines it. Greg Whitten's got a 1985 Ferrari 288 GTO in his collection, and if you know anything about the GTO badge, you know this thing is serious. This was Ferrari's first time reviving the name since the 250 GTO, and when they brought it back, they weren't messing around. The 288 wasn't just a fast street car, it was originally built to race in the legendary Group B series. But here's the twist, Group B was shut down before the car could ever compete, so what we ended up with was a full-on race car, that just happened to be street legal. Ferrari only built 272 examples of the 288 GTO, which already makes it way rarer than even the F40 or the Enzo. That number alone has collectors buzzing, but when you dig into the engineering, it gets even better. Under the rear deck sits a 2.8-liter twin-turbocharged V8, mounted longitudinally. That was a first for a Ferrari road car, by the way. It pushed out roughly 400 horsepower, which may not seem like much today, but back in the mid-80s, that was absurd. We're talking 0 to 60 in under 5 seconds, and a top speed flirting with 190 miles per hour, at a time when most sports cars were still trying to break 140. But it's not just what's under the hood that makes this car special. The body itself was cutting edge. Ferrari used a combination of fiberglass, Kevlar, carbon fiber, and aluminum, materials they'd later rely on heavily for the F40. It's lightweight, aggressive, and has the perfect late 80s stance that just screams business. The flared fenders, the deep front grille, the tucked-in tail, all of it gives off this low-key menace. Whitten's car? It's one of the few that still has its factory paint and original interior, which is a huge deal considering how many of these cars were tracked, modified, or repainted over the decades. And this is where Whitten's taste really shines. The 288 GTO wasn't just a performer, it came with a level of comfort that you didn't normally see in homologation cars. We're talking air conditioning, leather seats, power windows, even a decent stereo. It had the Ferrari Lusso DNA baked in, even while being built to tear up rally stages. Whitten appreciates that balance. He doesn't just want a piece of history that sits under a velvet rope. He wants something he can actually take out and drive, without it beating him up like a stripped-down race car. Did you know? The 288 GTO wasn't even officially sold in the US. Owners had to pull strings and go through specialty importers to get one across the border. That makes any stateside model extremely rare, and the few that exist today, practically untouchable at auction. Bottom line, this car's got it all. Heritage, rarity, performance, and that subtle Ferrari class. No surprise it's in Whitten's lineup. It's not just a collectible, it's one of those cars that tells you exactly why Ferrari is Ferrari. Let's get into Greg Whitten's 1990 Ferrari F40. And hey, if you're loving this tour so far, hit that like button and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. This F40 isn't just a supercar, it was the last road-going Ferrari personally approved by Enzo himself, and it tore up the record books back in the late 80s. Ferrari used lightweight Kevlar, carbon fiber, even Perspex windows to keep it down to around 1100 kilograms, while that twin-turbo 2.9-liter V8 screams out nearly 480 horsepower, rocketing 0 to 60 in under 4 seconds and topping over 200 miles per hour. There are no creature comforts, no carpet, no door handles, no ABS or stability aids. This is raw driving, and Whitten picked it up for exactly that reason. He wanted the pure analog thrill of a road-legal race car that still fits in his vintage collection. Bristol cream leather? Air conditioning? Not here. Just 6 Weber carbs, gated manual shifter, and turbocharged madness. Fun fact, the early F40s used so little paint you could actually see the Kevlar weave under the red, and those cars now fetch even more on the market. Every mile of this car's stripped-down pedigree is exactly what Whitten stands for. Top-tier rarity and insane performance, a piece of Ferrari history. Alright, let's get into Greg Whitten's 1995 Ferrari F50, and this thing is just wild. It's not trying to be comfortable, flashy, or even friendly. It's trying to be as close to a Formula 1 car as Ferrari could legally sell to the public. They only made 349 of these, and Whitten managed to lock one down because honestly, it doesn't get more hardcore than this. The F50's entire engine setup is straight from Ferrari's 1990 F1 car, a naturally aspirated 4.7-liter V12 that revs past 8,000 RPM and makes over 500 horsepower. It's bolted directly to the carbon fiber tub, which means the engine itself is part of the chassis. That's F1 tech, no exaggeration. The car doesn't have power steering, it doesn't have ABS, it doesn't care if you're tired or distracted, it demands all of you, all the time. And that's exactly why Whitten wanted it. He's not just about collecting rare cars to park them in a museum, he actually drives them. The F50 has the perfect mix of race pedigree and road presence, with just enough usability. There's leather, air conditioning, and a removable hardtop, so it's not completely brutal like the F40, but it's still raw, still loud, still fast. Fun fact, Ferrari intentionally made one fewer F50 than they knew people wanted, just 349 total, to make sure every single one stayed exclusive. And of those, only 55 came to the US, which makes Whitten's even more of a unicorn. This isn't just another Ferrari, it's the Enzo, the brand's first real hypercar made for the road. Back in 2003, this thing was Ferrari at its most extreme. Only 399 were ever sold to the public, and even then, you couldn't just walk in and buy one. Ferrari handpicked the buyers. And yeah, Greg Whitten made the cut because he already owned cars like the F40 and F50. That's how exclusive this circle was. Under the rear glass, a 6-liter naturally aspirated V12 built with straight-up Formula 1 tech. It makes around 660 horsepower with F1-style paddle shifters that, at the time, felt like driving something from the future. The carbon fiber monocoque chassis, pushrod suspension, and massive carbon ceramic brakes, this wasn't a luxury cruiser. It was a barely tamed race car. You could actually feel the road in your spine, hear every rev echo through the cabin, and still cruise legally through the city. Now, Whitten didn't buy the Enzo just to stash it away. He picked it up because it represents the perfect point where racing DNA meets usability. And his particular car? It's not just special because it's an Enzo, it's all about the details. Low mileage models, especially ones in colors like Rosso Scuderia or Argento Nürburgring, are pulling $3.5 to $3.8 million at auction. So it's not just an icon, it's serious investment territory. Fun fact, Ferrari actually custom fitted the Enzo into each driver. Pedal box, seat position, all tailored like a race car cockpit. It wasn't just about comfort, it was about control. Whitten's Enzo is loud, rare, and unapologetically raw. It's not meant to be polished and parked, it's meant to be driven like it was designed to be. When you've got a car that feels this close to a Formula 1 car, why wouldn't you? Now let's talk about something that doesn't just wear the GTO badge, it earns it. Greg Whitten's 2011 Ferrari 599 GTO is one of those cars that blends old school Ferrari muscle with modern F1 tech, and honestly, it's one of the wildest road cars Ferrari's ever made. The GTO badge isn't something Ferrari hands out lightly. Only two cars had it before this, the legendary 250 GTO from the 60s and the twin-turbocharged 288 GTO from the 80s. So when they slapped that name on the 599, you knew it wasn't just a marketing gimmick. This thing had to be brutal. And it is. Ferrari only made 599 units of the car worldwide, so already we're talking exclusive territory. But it's what's under the hood that really brings it home. A 6-liter naturally aspirated V12 cranking out 661 horsepower and screaming all the way up to 8,400 RPM. It's the same engine as the track-only 599XX, but slightly detuned for road use. Barely. It launches from 0 to 60 in about 3.3 seconds, and it'll keep pulling all the way past 208 miles per hour. And trust me, that V12 scream is pure Ferrari theater. Whitten's all about performance cars with heritage, and this one hits that sweet spot. Ferrari didn't just give the 599 GTO more power, they basically stripped the regular 599 GTB down to the bones and rebuilt it with track in mind. They shaved off nearly 100 kilograms using thinner glass, carbon fiber panels, lighter wheels, racing buckets, and aluminum whenever they could. It even uses the same carbon ceramic brakes and magnetorheological suspension you'd find in Ferrari's race division. The GTO also got revised aerodynamics and faster shifts through the F1's 6-speed gearbox. And it's not just numbers on paper. The 599 GTO lapped Ferrari's Fiorano test track in 1:24 seconds, which at the time was a full second quicker than the Enzo. So why did Whitten want it? Simple. It's about the balance. You're getting all the savage performance of the 599XX, but with just enough civility to actually drive it on the road. That's the kind of dual personality Whitten gravitates toward. And when you factor in how rare it is, how technically advanced it is in its day, and how raw it still feels behind the wheel, it makes perfect sense in a collection like his. Did you know? The 599 GTO is so loud and aggressive that Ferrari engineers had to tone down the intake noise just to meet road regulations. The original setup made the cabin sound like a Formula 1 pit lane. If the F30 was Ferrari's wild child of the 80s, then the 599 GTO is its spiritual successor for the modern era. Less flash, more fury. Whitten's got a few Ferraris in his garage, but the GTO, that's one you feel in your chest. Let's jump into Greg Whitten's 2015 Ferrari LaFerrari. This one is serious hypercar territory. Only 499 units were ever built, and Ferrari handpicked owners who already had F40s, F50s, and Enzos. Whitten checked all the boxes. Under that carbon Kevlar skin is a 6.3-liter V12 pumping out 789 horsepower, mated to a 161 horsepower High-Kurs hybrid motor, for a jaw-dropping total of 950 horsepower. What makes it insanely expensive? It's not just the hybrid V12 performance or the lightweight tech. Think active aero, carbon fiber tub, paddle shift dual clutch gearbox, and F1 grade traction control, all wrapped in a sculpted race-bred package. Whitten picked this one because it represents Ferrari's true flagship. Part of Theory Racer, part Street Rocket, part Electric Assist Marvel, which is exactly what he collects and drives. Fun fact, LaFerrari shaves more than 5 seconds off Enzo's lap time at Fiorano, clocking in under 1 minute 20 seconds, making it the fastest road-legal Ferrari on their test circuit. This isn't just a hybrid supercar, it's the pinnacle of Ferrari's innovation and exclusivity, and in Whitten's collection, it's the hypercar that ties it all together. Let's talk about Greg Whitten's Ferrari 430 Scuderia, because this isn't just some upgraded F430 with a badge and a louder exhaust. No, this thing is a purpose-built road-legal track weapon that's been stripped down to the bones, and that's exactly why it earned a spot in his garage. Ferrari shaved off over 100 kilograms compared to the standard F430 by pulling out anything that wasn't essential. Carpets? None. Soundproofing? Nope. Even the floor is just bare aluminum. And don't expect a fancy infotainment screen or cup holders in here. This car means business. What you do get is a naturally aspirated 4.3-liter V8 pushing out 503 horsepower, screaming all the way up to 8,500 RPM. That engine is paired with a lightning-quick single-clutch F1 gearbox, and yeah, it's aggressive. You feel everything. Every shift slams through with real mechanical feedback, like the car is constantly reminding you it's not here for comfort. Whitten picked this one up not because it's the fastest, but because it delivers that razor-sharp edge Ferrari was known for before all the hybrid tech and dual-clutch gearboxes. The 430 Scuderia was co-developed with Michael Schumacher, and you can feel that F1 heritage baked into the chassis and electronics. The eDiff, F1 track traction system, carbon ceramic brakes, all race-derived tech meant to make you faster without needing to be a pro driver. And it actually lapped Ferrari's Fiorano test track just a hair behind the Enzo. That's no small feat for a V8 car. Even though prices have crept up, anywhere from 250 grand to 350 grand depending on mileage and spec, it's not about the dollar figure, it's about what this car represents. For collectors like Whitten, it checks all the boxes. Lightweight, raw, rare, and still analog enough to feel completely connected to the road. No filters, no fluff, just a naturally aspirated Ferrari at full tilt. Did you know the 430 Scuderia was the last Ferrari V8 to use a single clutch automated manual, making it one of the final cars to really deliver that snappy old school paddle shift feel? It's the kind of thing purists love, and why Whitten made sure to grab one before they disappeared into private collections forever. This car wasn't built for the showroom, it was built for backroads, and Greg uses it exactly how Ferrari intended. Now this one's a bit of a sleeper in Greg Whitten's garage, the Ferrari 512 Berlinetta Boxer. If you're only familiar with the flashier stuff like the LaFerrari or the F50, this might not catch your eye at first. But don't let the clean 70s wedge shape fool you. This car is a big deal, especially for collectors who know their Ferrari history inside and out. So, quick backstory. The 512BB came out in the late 70s, right after the Daytona. And this is the first time Ferrari ever put a flat 12 engine in a road car. Yeah, it's technically not a boxer engine, even though they called it that. It's actually a 180-degree V12, but still super low and super wide. It gave the car a lower center of gravity, which made it feel more balanced compared to the front-engine GTs from the same era. Now, why is this one special to Whitten? Because he's not just chasing speed, it's all about engineering milestones, and the 512BB was a turning point. This was Ferrari saying, we're not afraid to try something radically different. Mid-engine, carbureted V12, full Pininfarina bodywork. Back then, this was cutting edge. And Whitten's example? It's believed to be one of the early Euro-spec models, which means no big US bumpers ruining the lines, and those beautiful 6 Weber carbs still intact under the rear deck. That alone makes it way more collectible. These cars didn't get a ton of love back in the day, so owners who kept them in good shape, their patience paid off. Values have shot up in recent years. We're talking anywhere from 350 to 500 grand, depending on condition, originality, and service history. And Whitten? He's the kind of guy who doesn't just buy the prettiest example. He finds the one with all the right boxes ticked. Matching numbers, factory correct paint, period wheels, everything. Did you know the Berlinetta Boxer was never officially imported to the US by Ferrari? Owners had to go through gray market channels just to get one legally on American roads. That makes any US registered 512BB even more rare today. And let's not forget the feel of it. No power steering, no traction control, just raw analog Ferrari. It's wide, it's low, and that flat 12 snarls right behind your head. Whitten likes that kind of connection. It's not just about speed or prestige, it's about feeling the car work with you, not for you. So yeah, the 512BB might not be the loudest car in his collection, but among purists, it's a crown jewel. And that's just a glimpse inside Greg Whitten's insane Ferrari collection, one that blends old school legend with modern hypercar royalty. These aren't just garage trophies, they're rolling pieces of history that actually get driven. That's the real flex. If you made it this far, hit that like button and subscribe for more deep dives into the rarest and wildest car collections on the planet. We've got some crazy stuff coming your way. Which Ferrari in Whitten's garage would you take for a weekend drive if you had the keys? Drop it in the comments. I'm curious if you're Team Enzo or maybe more into that raw 288 GTO vibe.